Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Spot On Weather meteorologist Matthew Euler, and welcome to my latest video. This will be my teleconnections discussion for the 13th of October, 2025. All right, so let's start off and take a look at the northern hemisphere. Let's look at the shortwave troughs and ridges across the northern hemisphere as of today, the 13th of October, 2025. Okay, so we see whenever you see the light brown colors or the orangish colors, that's associated with upper level ridges. And typically, when you get upper level ridges, you get sinking vertical air motion. You get surface high pressure to form basically downstream from these ridge axis areas. And you typically get warmer than normal temperatures beneath ridges and drier than normal conditions. When we look at the greens and the blue colors on this graphic, green and blue indicates upper level troughs there at 500 millibars, or about 18,000 feet above mean sea level. And these green and blue colors with the troughs, they're typically associated with more unsettled weather conditions. Right downstream from the trough axis, you typically get surface low pressure development, and cooler than normal temperatures also tend to go into these troughs. So let's take a look and see what's going on across the northern hemisphere. We'll start and we'll do this from left to right. We see a very strong upper level ridge. We have a closed upper level high and upper level ridge over northwestern Russia with a downstream trough over just basically to the west of the Aleutian Islands, into the western Aleutian Islands and into the Bering Sea. We see troughing. Additionally, we see troughing beneath the strong upper level ridge there over northwest Russia. Just to the south of that, just north of China into southern Russia, there is a very strong closed high and upper level ridging into the northeastern Pacific Ocean, and specifically into the Gulf of Alaska. We see downstream troughing with the green coloring across the United States Pacific Northwest area. We see downstream upper level ridging extending from northeastern Texas up through the Midwest of the United States, up into the Great Lakes, with the highest heights there just to the southeast of Hudson Bay there in southeastern Canada. We have the highest height center there. We see a trough in the blue shading there along the South Carolina, Georgia, northern Florida area of the United States. The subtropical high has been suppressed a little bit further to the south there, to the east of Florida, and to the northeast of Puerto Rico at the present time. We do see a closed upper level low and troughing across the North Atlantic to the south of Greenland. Additionally, we see a very strong closed upper high, generally located over the British Isles today, with a ridge axis extending northwest towards south, just to the southeast of Greenland there, across the GI-UK gap. We see that right now, and then we see another fairly deep closed low and trough, generally located over northeastern Europe. So in summary, what we're looking at in today's 500 millibar shortwave ridges and troughs, what we're looking at are 4 upper level high height centers, one across northwestern Russia, one across the northeastern Pacific Ocean and the Gulf of Alaska, another high height center into southeastern Canada, and finally we have a higher height center and ridging there over the British Isles, Ireland, England, that area. We see 5 upper level low height centers. We see troughing there across southern Russia. We also see the troughing there across the Pacific Ocean, the northwestern Pacific, troughing along the U.S. Pacific Northwest coast into Washington State and Oregon, troughing beneath this strong higher heights and ridging there into southern Georgia and South Carolina and Florida, another trough across the North Atlantic, and then finally we see upper level troughing across northeastern Europe. If we look at the Matten-Julian oscillation MJO phases and areas of enhanced convection, you typically see where the air rises in association with the various MJO phases. The phases range from 1 through 8. Right now, we are just entering MJO phase 1. which would promote convection there in the vicinity of Madagascar. We look at the temperature composites for the MJO for September, October, and November. Of course, October right in the center of this. Anything in the orange coloring indicates above normal temperatures. Anything in the blue coloring is below normal temperatures. So right now, as we're entering into phase one, we'd expect to see some milder temperatures coming into the eastern United States. That's typically what you see this time of year with phase one. Notice how phase two, how things flip to where we get blue coloring across the eastern United States down to the Gulf Coast. Below normal temperatures. Phase three is kind of a mixed bag across the mid-Atlantic, kind of closer to average, as well as phase four, closer to average temps. If we get to phase five, we get much cooler than normal across the eastern United States and a lingering cooling effects from the mid-Atlantic to New England in phase six. And then if we were to go into phases 7 and 8 this time of the year, we have milder temperatures in the eastern United States. So what are the models showing right now for the latest MJO? The Jeffs V12, which runs out to the 27th of October, showing the MJO currently working its way out into phase one. And then we see the dates here along the red line. This is the 13th of October today. We're in phase one. It rotates in towards phase two by the 15th, here in a couple days, and then follow the red line and then this blue and purple line. And MJO is forecast to go into phases 3 and 4 and even work its way into 5 by the end of October. So you kind of see the progression of the MJO line here according to the Jeffs V12 model. If we look at the CFS V2 bias corrected here on the left, this is showing the MJO very similar to the Jeffs out into phase one today. Stays in phase one through about the 20th. It works its way into phase two. There from the 20th to about the 24th. Working its way into phase three, and then right back into the small inner circle here. Now, whenever this MJO goes into the smaller inner circle, that generally means that the MJO is not having a very strong impact on the United States weather. So we'll see what happens here. On the middle, we have the European bias corrected model through the 27th of October. Again, showing the MJO now working its way from phase one into weak phase two, and then very briefly touches the null phase slant weak phase three, working its way into phase four by the end of October. On the right-hand side is the BOM, Bureau of Meteorology model, Australian Bureau of Meteorology, showing the MJO out into phase on that border of 8-1, working its way into the null phase, and then coming out of the null phase, eventually by the 23rd of October into phase four, then working its way into phase 5, 23 to 27 October, phase 6 from 27 to Halloween, the 31st of October, and then early November, working its way back into the null phase here. So MJO is definitely becoming more active. You may recall my previous two teleconnections discussion videos where the MJO was just basically forecast to remain at the center of the MJO phase diagram within this small center inner circle. But now it's working its way out into 2, 3, 4, in some models, longer range models showing this going in potentially into 5 and 6 by the end of October. If we look at the latest water temperature anomalies, orange being above normal water temperatures, blue being below normal water temperatures, we see that the warmer than normal water is generally focused into the Sea of Japan, just to the west there, the Japan, also in the vicinity of Korea right now, as well as north of Taiwan. We see above normal water temperatures in the northwestern Pacific. We see above normal water temperatures as well across the north central Pacific, south of the Aleutian Islands. And we do still see some above normal waters, 1 to 2 degrees Celsius above normal there off the U.S. West Coast, from Oregon southward off the California coast, and also to the northeast of the Hawaiian Islands, above normal water temperatures. Very mild or slightly above normal water temperatures across much of the Atlantic right now. We do see some below normal water temperatures, really focused on the central equatorial Pacific. And I mentioned this before, we do have the La Nina developing. Look where the deepest blue colors are for the greatest cooler than normal waters. They're generally west of 120 degrees west longitude, extending out towards just to the west of the 150 degree west longitude line. So right in this area we have the coolest of normal temperatures, so that seems more central Pacific based, vice over here off the immediate coast of South America. Another thing that I took a look at today, the daily Southern Oscillation Index is running positive 7.15. Now, anything above positive 7 indicates La Nina conditions. Well, what do we see with we take a look at the Southern Oscillation Index. It's the pressure difference between Tahiti and Darwin, Australia. And typically in a La Nina, when it develops, we see stronger than normal easterly trade winds. And so, you got faster winds blowing from the eastern towards the western tropical Pacific areas. We look at the latest update on the quasi-biennial oscillation, the QBO update. Notice where the blue line is. It's generally in this negative value area. You kind of see the solid blue line there. So we are still in the easterly descending phase of the QBO. Now, why do we care about looking at the QBO? Which, by the way, what is the QBO? The QBO basically tells us the wind direction in the stratosphere above the equator. So whenever the QBO is in an easterly phase, that means our winds in the stratosphere well above the ocean surface are blowing from the east. If the QBO is in the westerly phase, this blue line would be over to the right of this solid gray vertical line, but it's not. And with westerly QBO, one other thing to mention is the winds are from the west. They're in the stratosphere above the equator. So there is, according to research, some connection between the QBO in the tropics and its impact on mid-latitude weather, as well as a connection to higher latitude weather, mainly the stratospheric polar vortex. Whenever the QBO is in the easterly phase, it tends to favor a weaker wintertime stratospheric polar vortex and favors more of a negative phase of the NAO, the North Atlantic Oscillation. Now, just like anything with the atmosphere, nothing's ever 100% guaranteed. And so this is just a rule of thumb based on research from previous researchers. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen this way in the winter, but this is why we pay attention to the QBO. We look at the latest teleconnections forecast. We'll start with the AO. And the negative AO generally favors colder than normal temperatures. A dip of the jet stream into the eastern U.S. We get colder than normal temperatures, Midwest to the East Coast with a negative AO. We get a nice strong upper level ridge into the Gulf of Alaska, kind of like what we're seeing right now, actually. Over on the right is a positive AO, showing more of a west to east jet stream. We have milder air invading much of the United States, more milder Pacific air with a positive AO. The coldest Arctic air stays well to the north in the wintertime across the Arctic with stronger stratospheric polar vortex. We look at the latest European EPS AO 50 perturb member forecast. We see that we're generally right around the zero value here, right? That indicates neutral conditions right on through the 17th of October. And then we turn slightly negative with the AO from the 18th right to the 23rd of October. Then we're going to be mainly neutral to slightly negative through 28 October. Look at the European EPS AO 50 perturb members. Now, this is not updated since initialization on the 9th of October. So this is the latest graphic I can give you. It's a 46-day forecast out to late November. Notice how we have a positive AO through the 12th of October, which was yesterday. Then we go slightly negative to neutral from 13 October to the 20th of October. And then we work our way positive with the AO, 21 to 28 October, transitioning neutral again to slightly negative from 29 October right on through the 24th of November. We look at the NOAA JEFS V12 AO 30 perturb member forecast out through 29 October. We see a neutral phase of the AO presently through the 15th of October, and then we turn slightly negative from 16 to 24 October before basically just going neutral to slightly negative through the 29th of October. Looking at the North Atlantic Oscillation NAO forecast, big differences here. Negative NAO favors a nice strong upper level ridge there across the North Atlantic into Greenland. We get a blocking high in place On basically the western and eastern sides of the blocking high with a negative NAO, you get more of a push of Arctic air straight down into the eastern United States in this trough. And you also get Arctic air flowing down into northwestern Europe with troughing across much of Europe as well. So typically with a negative NAO, you're going to get colder temperatures, colder than normal temps into Europe, and you're going to get colder than normal temperatures into the eastern United States. Now, really what this negative NAO depends on is where these highest heights are located. There's a case of where you can have a east-based negative NAO with the higher than normal heights further to the east towards Greenland, and that generally tends to favor more of the colder air intruding into the European area. Or you can get a west-based negative NAO where these upper level heights are highest between Greenland and Hudson Bay, Canada, and that's going to favor more of the Arctic air spilling into the eastern United States. Over here on the right-hand side, showing you an example of the pattern here with a positive NAO. We have stronger areas of low pressure, generally across the northern latitudes. Coldest air remains blocked from getting down. It doesn't come down into the middle latitudes at all, remains up over the Arctic with a positive NAO. You get a milder west to east jet stream, milder air from the Pacific all the way across the United States, across the Atlantic. You get milder air aloft as well into a lot of southern Europe. In this case, we look at the European EPS NAO 50 perturb member forecast through the 28th of October. We see a negative phase of the NAO through the 25th of October. Look at the green line here. That's the average. All the ensemble members were negative through the 25th. Then we briefly get closer to neutral 25 and 26 October before again dropping negative. So the common theme here, according to the European EPS, is for a negative NAO. We look at the European EPS NAO 50 perturb member 46-day forecast out to the 24th of November. We had a strongly positive NAO through the 12th yesterday. Now it's become negative again, though. From the 13th to the 21st of October, negative, transitioning back positive from 22 to 28 October, then going neutral from 29 October to 6 November, and then going slightly negative to neutral through the 24th of November. We look at the NOAA JEFS V12 NAO 30 perturb member forecast, a negative NAO through the 23rd of October, and it's going to transition to neutral 24 and 25 October, then become slightly negative. Looking at the Pacific North American PNA forecast, just a rehash here, positive PNA versus negative PNA. Positive PNA here on the left, negative PNA on the right, and it's a major flip-flop in the pattern, okay, for the United States specifically. With a positive PNA, we get higher than normal heights across the western U.S. and warmer than normal temperatures. We get a downstream trough into the eastern U.S. and below normal temperatures with a positive PNA. We get a negative PNA, we have a trough and below normal temperatures across the western United States, and we get upper level ridging generally to the southeastern and mid-Atlantic states there with above normal temperatures. So let's examine the forecast here by the models. European EPS PNA 50 perturb member forecast out through 28 October, showing a negative phase of the PNA right through 15th October. And you know, we're seeing that, and I'll show you the upper level 500 millibar height anomalies. We do see that troughing out in the western United States right now. We do expect, according to this model, that the PNA becomes neutral 16 and 17 October, transitioning back to negative, though, from 18 to 26 October, then becoming neutral again after the 26th. European EPS PNA 50 perturb member forecast out through 24 November. This is the 46-day forecast. Negative phase of the PNA through the 16th of October, right in here. Follow the green line here. Then we go neutral from 16 to 21 October, then turn positive with the PNA from 22 October all the way to 4 November. Then we transition to more neutral conditions. Looking at the NOAA JEFS V12 PNA 30 perturb member forecast out through 29 October, showing a negative PNA through the 14th of October, neutral conditions 15 and 16 October, then turning negative again, in fact, strongly negative by the 20th of October. That's where it reaches its lowest point. and then we transition to more of a positive PNA from 23 to 29 October. Looking at the Eastern Pacific Oscillation EPO forecast, why do we care about the EPO? Well, negative EPO is here on the left, showing a strong upper level high, upper level ridging into the Gulf of Alaska. We see the jet stream going up and over this ridging along with all the storms. They have to go up and over this high pressure ridge, and then the jet stream dips back down into the northern plains, Midwest, as well as into the mid-Atlantic. So you got colder temperatures with a negative EPO filtering in from northwestern Canada into the United States. Over on the right-hand side, we see a positive EPO where we get the development of a stronger Aleutian low pressure. We see more of a stronger west to east Pacific jet stream with a positive EPO, higher than normal heights there across the Hawaiian Islands, that latitude belt there to the south. And then we see just mild Pacific air with a strong westerly component of the jet stream from the west coast to the east coast. So milder than normal temperatures over much of the United States with a positive EPO. Again, very strong Aleutian low. And then we see the cold confined up towards Greenland, North Atlantic, and the Arctic area as a whole. Here is the European EPO 50 per term member forecast. Right on through the 28th of October, we see a strongly negative EPO through the 17th of October. Now, this is the latest data from overnight last night. We see a turn to positive 17 and 18 October, the EPO, just briefly. Then we go neutral briefly, 19 and 20 October, dip back down negative, just real brief through about the 22nd. And then we go back positive again after that. Looking at the European EPO 50 per term member forecast out through 24 November, we have a strongly negative EPO on this model as well, right on through the 21st of October. Then we see a positive EPO from 21 October to 1 November, becoming neutral after that for the most part, right on through the 24th of November. And then NOAA Just V12 EPO 30 per term member forecast out through 29 October, showing a strongly negative EPO through 16 October on this model. Then we go positive with EPO 16 and 19 October, neutral conditions briefly 20 and 21 October, then turn positive again from 22 to 29 October. The latest update on the stratospheric polar vortex here on the 13th of October 2025, courtesy of NetWeather TV. We see generally these white lines here indicate the upper level height lines, and we're looking at 30 millibars above the pressure level, at 30 millibars above the Earth's surface. And so we do have a couple closed little height centers here. The blue coloring indicating colder temperatures in the stratosphere, the yellow colors indicating warming temperatures in the stratosphere. In general, we see generally the polar vortex continuing to slowly strengthen. It's not strengthening greatly, but it is slightly strengthening over the next 2 weeks. Now let's examine the latest 500 millibar height anomaly charts. We looked at the teleconnections. Now let's identify the North American perspective, where the upper level ridges and the troughs are located and where they're forecast to go out in time. Upper left shows the current conditions here on the 13th of October 2025, strong upper level high, generally located across the northeastern Pacific. We see upper level ridging well above normal heights across the Gulf of Alaska. Ridge axis is extending up towards the Canadian Alaska state lines there. We do see an upper level trough in the green colors across Seattle down through Portland, a lot of the Pacific Northwest down towards Northern California, unsettled weather, as well as cooler than normal temperatures. And then we definitely see the abnormally higher than normal heights just to the east-southeast of Hudson Bay there across eastern Canada. Beneath this strong ridging, we do see the weak closed low there in the vicinity of Wilmington, North Carolina, and we do see the troughing into North Florida. We do see the reflection of the subtropical high there, the Bermuda high, generally to the east of that upper low there off the east coast. And there is closed low and troughing across the North Atlantic. Upper right-hand picture, we're showing the forecast 72 hours out in the future. This is for coming up for Thursday morning, the 16th of October. We now see the development of troughing now digging into the eastern Aleutian Islands and western Alaska. This upper level ridge that's been persistent across the northeastern Pacific has now been squashed. We're starting to see an acceleration of the winds here because of the height gradient across the northern Pacific. We do see upper level ridging that is oriented more southwest to east northeast into western and southwestern Canada. Closed upper level low now moves towards the east across northeastern Nevada, the closed low, and troughing. We do see an upper level ridge and building heights from northern Texas up through Iowa, Minnesota into south central Canada with a downstream trough along the immediate U.S. East Coast. We do see the development of that. We really do see that negative NAL really becoming more prevalent as upper level heights are well above normal to the east of Greenland. That ridge axis is working its way into southern Greenland. Beneath that strong upper level ridge, we do see a strong closed upper level low across the North Atlantic with troughing there generally across the western Atlantic Ocean. Bottom left here, forecast 500 millibar height anomalies for the 19th of October, this upcoming Sunday. Troughing is now developed to the west, southwest of the Aleutian Islands. We do see upper level ridging now trying to redevelop across parts of the northeastern Pacific up towards the Aleutian Islands. A trough develops downstream from the ridging just off the west coast of western Canada of British Columbia area. And then we see troughing that has now moved into the northern plains and the central and southern plains. This is a nice break for you down in Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska. You've been running well above normal temperatures. This will be a nice cool down finally as we kind of break up the upper level ridge here across the central U.S. It's been so persistent. We do see upper level ridging across the eastern seaboard up through New England and southeastern Canada by Sunday. And we also see some higher than normal height centers there over southern Greenland as well as over parts of northern Hudson Bay. There is a closed upper low and troughing across the northern Atlantic Ocean for Sunday. On the right-hand side is the 500 millibar height anomaly forecast for next Wednesday, the 22nd of October. We now see a closed upper level low position over western Alaska, and we do see higher than normal heights to the south of that. And we do see the tight packing of these solid black height lines here. And that is going to, these height contour lines are packed tightly together. That means we got a lot of upper level wind. So the jet stream is going to be pretty much blowing west to east and strengthening across the North Pacific by next Wednesday. We do see the blue color here associated with troughing across Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, and parts of the Four Corners region there. We do see above normal heights across the southeastern U.S. up to the mid-Atlantic, and there will be an upper level ridge that is extending generally from portions of southeastern Canada northwestward towards the Arctic area. Here's the final thoughts for my latest teleconnections discussion. The MJO is becoming more active over the next 2 weeks, with models showing a movement. We're presently in phase 1, but this movement will continue. Majority of the models showing it moving through phase 2, 3, 4, and potentially 5. Now, that presents a lot of different possibilities here. Let's go back to the MJO temperature composites for this time of year in October, okay? Right here. So, phase 1 right now would favor warmer than normal temperatures across the eastern U.S., but the big thing is, we just had a coastal storm system off East Coast. So on the backside of that coastal storm, we're still seeing northerly winds, northeast and northerly winds. So that's really suppressing the ability of the MJO really to dominate here. We're getting more of a northerly wind component. It's going to keep temperatures cool for the eastern U.S. Now, what happens if you go to MJO phase 2 as it moves into phase 2? That would favor cooler than normal temps here in the eastern U.S. A mixed bag in 3 and 4, phases 3 and 4 near average temps. But if we go to MJO phase 5 and 6, potentially, eventually down the road here, that would favor cooler than normal temperatures for the mid-Atlantic. So it's a mixed bag when we look at the MJO based on this rotation within the various phases. Let me go back here. Okay. The La Nina conditions are developing across the tropical eastern and central Pacific. If you have anything in excess of positive 7 with the Southern Oscillation Index, that indicates La Nina is present. We have a positive 7.15 daily SOI We do see the below average sea surface temperatures according to latest CDAS at minus 0.9 degrees Celsius. Sea surface temperature anomalies overall across the northern hemisphere oceans, warmer than normal water across the northwestern and north central Pacific Ocean, as well as warmer than normal water off the United States west coast, specifically in that zone off the coast from Oregon to California. We do see cooler than normal waters across equatorial tropical Pacific. Models are indicating a neutral to slightly negative AO through 28 October. The negative phase of the NAO, or of the AO rather, the negative phase of the AO favors cooler than average temps across the eastern United States and troughing along the eastern seaboard. Neutral phase of the AO would favor near average temps and a more zonal west to east jet stream. And then a positive phase of the AO favors above average temps across the eastern U.S. Models are also indicating a mainly negative NAO through the 25th of October. Negative phase of the NAO favors cooler than average temps across the eastern U.S. We see more of the higher than normal heights and blocking ridge across the northwest Atlantic, specifically up towards Greenland. Neutral phase of the NAO would favor near average temps across the eastern U.S. Positive phase of the NAO favors above average temps across the eastern U.S. Models are indicating a mainly negative PNA Pacific North American pattern through the 23rd of October. This kind of offsets the negative phase of the NAO, right? Negative phase of the NAO favors troughing in the eastern U.S., but a negative PNA favors ridging in the eastern U.S. So kind of like destructive interference between these two teleconnections, the negative NAO and the negative PNA, kind of butting heads a little bit here. We do see a transition of the PNA. However, we'll be watching this trend if the PNA goes positive from 23 to 29 October. Now, negative PNA, warmer than normal temps for the eastern U.S. along with upper level ridging. We see coolest the normal temperatures for the western U.S. with a negative PNA. If we look at a positive PNA, that's going to favor cooler than normal temperatures for the eastern U.S. with warmer than normal temperatures for the western U.S. So positive PNA ridging in the west, warmer temps. Positive PNA troughing in the east, cooler than normal temps in the east. Models are also indicating a strongly negative Eastern Pacific Oscillation EPO through 17 October, neutral EPO 18 to 20 October, then the EPO turns positive from 21 to 28 October. The positive EPO would favor upper level troughing across Alaska and the Bering Sea with a downstream ridge and warmer than average temps from the northern plains to the east coast. The negative EPO we're seeing now favors colder than average temps from the northern plains to the east coast. And then models are indicating a slowly strengthening stratospheric polar vortex into the last week of October, and that's expected this time of year as daylight continues to rapidly decrease across the northern latitudes. We're getting larger swings in temperatures from south to north across the latitude lines. The overall assessment then, negative NAO influences the weather pattern with strong upper level ridging into Greenland. This allows for an upper trough to dig into the western Atlantic eastern seaboard late this week, 16 and 17 October. So that's going to result in cooler temperatures from New England into the mid-Atlantic for Thursday the 16th and Friday the 17th of October. What I noted really is we have shorter wavelengths on the 500 millibar chart with the upper level trough over the western U.S. And we have an upper level trough also over the eastern U.S. And we see an upper level ridge kind of in between the troughs across the central U.S. Now, there are many times, and I've noticed this, in which the wavelengths are longer. And I always tell this to people. Whenever you get, whatever the weather is out west, it's usually the opposite in the eastern U.S. And that is due to the wavelength size. So usually in the western U.S., when it's drier and warmer than normal, the eastern U.S. is typically stormier and cooler than normal. And we can just flip it around. Whenever the western U.S. has trough in place and it's cooler and more unsettled, the eastern U.S. is milder than normal and drier than normal. So this is rare right now, in my opinion, because of these shorter wavelengths where we got a trough on the west coast, a ridge kind of like in northeast Texas up through the Midwest, in southern Canada there, southeastern Canada, and then we got a trough again over the eastern seaboard. What I'm seeing right now in the modeling based on the teleconnections is more of a progressive upper level pattern. What does that mean? That means we see fast moving multiple troughs and ridges across the United States over the next 7 to 10 days. So what you typically would expect is a brief warm up here in the eastern US, followed by cooler temperatures. And really, we're seeing that in the modeling. Pretty much agreement on a cool down this Thursday and Friday, the 16th and 17th of October. Then we're going to see a warm up over the weekend. And then we're going to see another cool down early next week behind a passing cold front and a trough kind of working its way down to the east again. Then that's going to move out. It's going to get warmer again mid to late next week before another cool down late October. So I think it's going to be an up and down type of temperature pattern. I think there will be multiple systems kind of moving in and out of the area across the eastern U.S. and the mid-Atlantic over the next 10 days. It does not look like a pattern that favors any kind of stagnation of the same weather. La Nina is developing, and we do see potential movement of the MJO into more active phases 1 through 5 through late October. This is going to be more of a greater Pacific influence. We see again that potential development of a stronger Aleutian low, that Aleutian low getting deeper. We do see more of the stronger Pacific jet potentially here the last week of October as well, showing up with a greater upper level height difference there between the stronger Aleutian low and the subtropical ridge there in the Pacific. So let's keep an eye on that. Now, again, I'm going to emphasize this because I've been seeing posts. It's going to be a La Nina winter, right? All the way through the winter, right? Wrong. I've been seeing posts lately about La Nina winter, so we're going to have below normal snow in certain sections of the country, above normal snow in other sections of the country. No, because number one, we're going to have a weak La Nina. That's forecast. And the La Nina transitions to ENSO neutral in January. So no, La Nina is not lasting through the entire winter. Just wanted to put that out there. Again, we see that signs of the stronger Pacific jet stream more west to east there and strengthening the Aleutian low pressure. I've already kind of hit that a lot. All right, so that's all I got for now, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this teleconnections discussion. I hope you learned stuff every time you watch it. I'm not going to be in office here. I normally try to cut these on Friday and Saturday, but I will be out of office coming up. So I'm not sure when the next teleconnections discussion is going to be, but I'll whenever I get some bandwidth here, I'll go ahead and put another one out, hopefully next week, because it's very important to look at these global weather patterns, these teleconnections, these climate drivers. It really helps explain what's going on with not only the long wave pattern of where the long wave ridges and troughs are, where the short wave ridges and troughs are. It's just important to take a look at to see, how does it tie in with these water temperature anomalies, above and below normal water temperatures. So that's all I got for now, everybody. And until next time, take care and God bless everyone.